Even if I did.
Ground Zero. So this is where the first guy got AIDS.
Peter, this is the site of the 9/11 terrorist attacks.
Oh, so Saddam Hussein did this?
No.
The Iraqi army?
No.
Some guys from Iraq?
No.
That one lady who visited Iraq that one time?
No, Peter, Iraq had nothing to do with this. It was a bunch of Saudi Arabians, Lebanese, and Egyptians financed by a Saudi Arabian guy living in Afghanistan and sheltered by Pakistanis.
So you're saying we need to invade Iran?
1.21 gigawatts! 1.21 gigawatts! Please, God! What the hell is a gigawatt?
Well, good morning, Senators. If I may, I'd like to begin by making a statement for the record. The file indicates that Ezra Kramer authorized
The President convened an emergency cabinet meeting today to discuss the growing scandal over an alleged government assassination program codenamed Blackbriar. CIA Director Ezra Kramer is under criminal investigation for authorizing the program, which in several cases may have even targeted U.S. citizens. Two agency officials have already been arrested. Dr. Albert Hirsch, the alleged mastermind of the Blackbriar program, and CIA Deputy Director Noah Bost, the program's operational chief. Meanwhile, mystery surrounds the fate of David Webb, also known as Jason Bourne, the source behind the exposure of the Blackbriar program. It's been reported that Webb was shot and fell from a Manhattan rooftop into the East River 10 stories below. However, after a 3-day search, Webb's body has yet to be found.
Good evening, America. Welcome once again to the Meat Potato Show, Conservative Talk and Awesome Rock. We are filming and broadcasting here at our Ambush Studios here in Worcester, Massachusetts. My great friend Iron Mike has come from the Rabid Republican blog. We are broadcasting on the Northern Lights Radio Network, WNLMradio.com. Well, folks, once more, unto the breach. Cry havoc. Let's slip the dogs of war. Folks, here we are, filming and broadcasting here at the Ambush Studios here in Worcester, Massachusetts on WNLMradio.com. The Meat Potato Show, Conservative Talk and Awesome Rock. We have had the great pleasure of interviewing tons of people here on the show over and over again. We're entering our winter phase here at Ambush Studios, so we're kind of doing things what I call behind the curtain here. Once the weather gets better, we'll be back out into the front room. Ladies and gentlemen, I met this man some time ago. I've been following his blog over the years, back when I first started my show. It's absolutely fantastic what this man has put together. The blog is called RabidRepublicanBlog.com. He'll correct me if I've got anything wrong here. This man has served his country in ways that I can't even begin to describe, so I will let him do that. He wants to be introduced as Iron Mike, and so that is what I'll do. Iron Mike from RabidRepublicanBlog.com. Mike, my good man.
Christopher, it is an honor and a pleasure for all, and thank you for all.
Scoot into the microphone a little bit, my friend.
Alrighty.
So, the very first thing I want to talk about is two things. Can you tell us about your service? How did you start on that? And then we'll get into the blog, and then we'll get into the feast. But tell us about your service, sir. I see you wearing the great hat, the Pathfinders. Please, sir, tell us about this great history.
Back when I grew up, you either went to college, you got a job, or you join the military. And I knew emotionally at 17 years old that I wasn't ready for college.
When was this? What year, time?
1961.
There you go.
1961.
Kennedy was in office.
We had just taken a new president, had taken office, and I was skeptical, but because even then I followed politics. But I joined the Army. I almost joined the Marines, and there's a long story behind that. But joined the Army, served 3 years, most of it in the 101st Airborne.
There you go.
Was fortunate enough to meet some truly great people, great soldiers, great professional warriors, gentlemen, mentors, and managed to wangle a trip to Ranger School with no intention of finishing. It was just...
You weren't even sure yourself.
Oh, I knew I was going to get out of the Army. But I was so bored at Fort Campbell that I'm thinking, how can I kill time, do something different? And I came up with this idea that I would go to Ranger School. And I'd go down and I'd mess around for a couple of days and flunk out and come back. But I'd have a trip down, a trip back, process in and out. It would be just a change of pace. So I did that. I went down, and what I didn't know is that I was immediately paired up with a Ranger buddy. And you're as responsible for that person as he is for you.
Sure.
You know, there are certain exercises and certain events that you go through with your Ranger buddy, and if he doesn't finish, you don't either. The first couple of days went by, and I was able to do it. It was tough, it was tiring, I was exhausted, but we were able to do it. And at the end of the first, I don't know, 8 or 9 days, right there in Benning, on
Fort Benning you were on.
on Harmony Church, yeah. They have what's called the Buddy Run. And we knew it was coming. And it's a 5-mile run with a rifle, and your rifle and gear have to weigh 60 pounds. And you take off, and you have a time limit to do it. And I honestly forget what the time limit was. I think it might have been either 30 minutes or 36 minutes. You could finish it at a jog, airborne shuffle or jog. But you couldn't leave your Ranger buddy. He couldn't leave you.
The two of you had
And
to
you
cross.
had to cross. And my Ranger buddy was this wonderful man, this incredible patriot, Benny Salinas, out of what was then the 2nd Infantry Division. He was older, he was an E6. This was make or break career for him. If he didn't make it through, he wasn't going to make E7, he wasn't going to get to retire. He was a great man, and he was not in the best of shapes. He was a big heavy guy for a Mexican. And so we start down the road. I think they launched 10 buddies at a time. And first 3-4 miles weren't too bad. But about halfway through that 4th mile,
Right.
Benny started Benny looked at me with his eyes rolling, and he said, "Let's just take a little break." And I knew that if either one of us stopped, our legs would
That's it, you're done.
cramp.
Right.
So I did something which I shouldn't have done. I fixed my bayonet. And I dropped behind Benny, and I stuck the bayonet right at the back of his neck. And I said,
Get your
"Run."
wrestling gear.
I said, "Run, you fucking Mexican, 'cause if you don't, I'm gonna stab you." And he picked up the pace a little bit, and we went on. And another half mile, I had this terrified idea, or this thought, oh my God, what if I trip over a fucking caterpillar and go down and stab him anyway? So God was with us. As we approached the finish line, I very discreetly put my bayonet back in the scabbard. We crossed the line, we were on time, and of course at Ranger School there's always one more thing. There's always one more thing. We crossed the line, we thought we were done, and the Ranger Sergeant says, "You see those ropes? Climb them." So we had to climb the ropes and touch a bar. So that was, you know, at that point I was too tired to walk into the operation shack and quit. And then they took us out to Camp Darby, and this 19-year-old soldier was starting to learn some awfully interesting stuff. And what amazed me is, as time went by, there were guys quitting already. Now, the work we were doing was hard. It was exhausting. We'd get, if we're lucky, 4 hours of sleep.
Lucky.
Or maybe 3 hours and a quick nap. So at the end of this first 3 weeks phase, they march us back to Victory Pond. And it was supposed to be a 20-mile forced march. Turned out to be 27. I made a terrible mistake. But that's how you learn. I bought some brand new boots. The Army had gone from the
I see where you're going.
the Army had gone from the bubble-toed boot to a smooth-toed boot. And I bought a pair, and I thought, oh, I'll put them on for this march. And they seemed awfully comfortable
At the time.
walking around in, until we did not 20 miles, but 27. And when I got to Victory Pond, I knew I couldn't take my boots off because I knew I was walking in water. So there's three things that you do there when you get to Victory Pond. And the first one, everyone's seen it on television, is climb the pole, walk the log, climb the rope, tap the ranger tab, and drop. At each one you ask permission. So the first thing you do is climb a 40-foot telephone pole. And much to my amazement, the student company commander, a captain, and remember I'm a lowly Spec 4, student company commander, a captain, climbed the pole, got up on the log, looked down, and wouldn't go any further. They literally had to send cadre up to get him and lower him. He was out. So the next guy walked the log. And when I got up there, I was a little trepidatious. But hey, it was fun. I could do this. If you can walk a log, 2 feet off the ground, you can
Walk a log 50
You
feet.
can walk 40 feet off the ground. So we did that. So we did that, splashed in the water. The water felt great. Double time around to the other event. The other event was a slide for life. And again, everyone has seen it. If you've seen anything about Ranger School, it's still there. They still do it. You take your sling rope, you take a pulley, and you climb this steel I-beam, 75, 80 feet in the air to a little platform. The sergeant is up there greeting you. And he takes your pulley and puts it over the cable, and you put your 2 hands on it. And he says, when you see you see that Ranger Sergeant? Yes, Sergeant. When he drops his flag, you let go this handle. You drop in the water. And you're doing about 70 miles an hour when you
Down the line.
get down the line. When it picks up speed, you're doing about 70.
Sure.
Now, I'd watched the people ahead of me, and I'd seen what they do, and some would just drop off neatly, and some would tumble and roll, and some would skip on their butts across the water. And I watched this and I thought, yeah. And the fact of the matter is, I could see from the engineering, there's no way I was going to hit that dock, because the cable eventually gets low enough that the water will drag you off. So you could only yell airborne or Ranger. I happened to have, as I climbed that pole, only 100 days left in the Army. So, being a Spec 4, being a short timer, still had no clue that I was going to finish this course. I go down that slide for life, and I had planned to land on my butt and skip as far as I could on my butt.
Like a stone, right?
Exactly. So I used to yell, "Airborne, Ranger, Currahee, short timer, 100 days." The flag is already down, and I wait, and I'm doing a full pull-up, so I can be as high off that water as I can. When I let go, and I skipped right up to the dock, and I went under, and I came up, and I made sure I still had my hat on. When I came up that dock, there were 7 Ranger sergeants standing around waiting for me. And I did 500 push-ups on the installment.
They told you, I had to say Ranger or Airborne. You went through this whole dissertation. That's why you had to do. You did those push-ups so you fell down.
I did push-ups on the installment plan.
How many did you think? I know you didn't do 500.
Oh yes, oh yes.
Oh, come on.
On the installment plan. That's where you do 30 or 40, and then you get the rest for a while, and you do 30 or 40 more.
You still owe us. You still owe us. So they hit you.
Oh.
Oh man.
So it was.
So anyway, so you were supposed to be short time.
Yeah.
But you ended up
Well,
serving.
the next thing, they took us up to the mountains, and that's a long truck ride from Fort Benning up to Dahlonega, Georgia. And I'd never seen terrain like that. We get up in those mountains. I said, "Wow, this is nifty." So they pull off the highway into the road into the camp. And they give us ammunition, and they say, "Okay, from here on, you're tactical." Okay. So we, guns out, and we're, waiting to be. The cadre staged a linear ambush on our convoy, which was perhaps the single finest piece of training that I have ever had. That they, it was so well done. I realized in 2 seconds that if it had been real bullets, every son of a bitch of us would have been dead. It was that well done. And they got the whole, it was amazing. But boy, did that open up my mind. So the mountain camp was fun. I learned a lot of stuff. I got confidence in myself that I could lead a patrol, because you take turns leading a patrol. Sometimes you're carrying the machine gun, sometimes you're carrying the demolition charge.
So are you going through a catharsis now? You're thinking, I'm out in 100 days.
But I didn't even realize it. I didn't.
Exactly. Okay.
I didn't even realize what was happening. Got down to the Florida phase. By now, the class is down to less than. I'd say it was down to 40% of the original strength. Finish the Florida phase. There's always one more thing. There's always one more thing. Graduation. We're back up at Benning. We're going to fall out in our khakis to go down to Building 4. It was brand new. Any of you old infantry types out there, you'll know Building 4. Well, it was brand new. We were going to graduate there. Up come the buses. We're out there lined up, ready to go. We're expecting to hear, right face, files in the right, column right. It was left face, files to the left. It's the wrong direction.
Yeah, what does that mean?
They let us pass the arms room, and they handed us back our rifles with the bayonet fixed.
You're going to combat.
And we had no idea what was going on. They double timed us down the road to the Ranger Bayonet course, which is, can I say this on live?
Go ahead. Uncensored.
The Ranger Bayonet course is the all-time motherfucker of motherfuckers. Through the wire, up the hill, over the hill, through the culvert, through the water, through the barbed wire. It's a sum of, you run it on a regular day in combat gear, you're gonna be bleeding, you're going to be ripped, uniform is gonna be ruined. We were in our Class B uniforms, the khaki uniform, all the brass, the metal, the stuff on. Some of the legs had their low quarter shoes. We paratroopers had our jump boots, spit shined, of course.
All ruined. All ruined in the end.
We didn't run this thing once. We ran it once and they said, get back in line. Again.
They ran you.
And again.
Oh, several
And again.
times.
And it's hot. It's wicked hot. And what the hell's going on? What's going on? By now, I mean, suddenly there's a word that gets to filter. I mean, you don't get to talk too much when you're crawling through a culvert. You had to understand, Ranger School then and now is NCO run. Sergeants run it.
Yeah, non-commissioned, not brass,
No.
non-commissioned,
And
right.
the sergeants run it. They decide who graduates. They decide who's worthy. They had picked, there were 3 people. They were lieutenants, it turns out, who had skated through marginally passed a couple of patrols. The sergeants didn't feel they were really worthy. And they decided to see, without ever telling anybody what was going on, they decided to see if these 3 would quit. And they ran us that morning until those 3 quit. So we had started out that morning thinking that we were going to graduate 97 of us, minus 3, 94. They take us back. We can turn our rifles in filthy, mucky, dirty. I'd never seen anything like it. We were allowed to turn them in as they were. They said, you have an hour and a half to be ready to graduate. And we were in tatters and bleeding. And we had to figure out very quickly how we were going to spiff ourselves up, because some of the guys, that was the only Class B uniform they had.
Right.
So we organized a raiding party. There was a leg transportation battalion over the other side of the hill on Harmony Church. And we went over there and we basically walked in their barracks and said, we're going to borrow your uniform. And we just borrowed uniforms. And 4 or 5 guys went to buy all the black spray paint they could find. And the boots were lined up and sprayed. All we could do was spray paint them black. There was no way that those boots could ever be presentable again.
Let me stop you there, though. This is part of the training, to learn how to improvise, go on the fly, figure shit out on the fly, under fire, under stress, under duress, and still come out winning in the end. That's part of it. See, today our military is like, it's like, well, I think the training's a little too tough. I think it's a little, maybe we should.
Some of our training is still as tough as it ever was, maybe tougher. Things have changed. I mean, we never had anything like GPS. You know, if you couldn't read a map and a compass.
Sure, right, you're screwed.
And do it with a filtered flashlight under a poncho in the middle of the night, soaking wet, you know, you weren't going to get from A to B. So I graduated. I was also, much to my surprise, promoted to buck sergeant on stage.
Interesting.
Yeah, in fact, it was interesting because they were calling for Sergeant Bill, Sergeant Bill, and the guy behind me pushed me, that's you, asshole. And so I went up and they pinned the tab, they pinned the tab and they pinned the chevrons and off I went. In fact, 60 some odd days later, I actually ETS'd and got out of the Army. Went home, put the uniforms in the duffel bag, put the duffel bag up in the attic, and never thought I'd ever wear it again. But as time went by, the Vietnam War, something I had volunteered for in '63, and they said, we don't need no privates in Vietnam, we need sergeants. It heated up, got bigger, it got bigger, it got bigger. My old unit went over, I felt bad. More time went by, and long story short, I ended up going back in the Army by way of ROTC. I actually went to college that I wasn't ready for in 1961. Got a commission and went to Vietnam, and the rest is, you know, between active duty, guard, and reserve, I ended up spending, I think it's 37 years. I have had an interesting military career, which much of it had to be paralleled, dovetailed, and interwoven with my civilian livelihoods. Not always easy. I've dabbled or played or paid attention to politics all the way. You know, I got in trouble in high school for hoisting a Goldwater Nixon banner from the light poles on the football field. And somehow they knew who did that. We had a 3-man raiding party at midnight to put that sucker up. That was my first experience with, you know, a 100-foot light pole is not a stable thing.
No, it's
You
not.
know, you get on top of that
Tends to
sucker,
swing a little.
it sways
It's
back
kinda
and forth.
designed that
and-
way.
Oh my Lord. And I was up in, anyway, so I've been playing with this stuff. I've been a conservative, I've been a Republican all my life. Because I understand the history. I understand economics, I don't understand all the big words, but I understand simple stuff. I know when your checkbook's empty, you know,
You're out of money.
you're out of money. When your credit card is maxed out,
You're out of money.
you're out of money. And when your rich relatives die and they don't leave you nothing,
You're out of money.
you're out of money. You know, gee, I wish Mr. Obama could figure that out, and I wish that our legis vermin, the 11 socialists that we send to Congress from this Commonwealth,
Right.
this pathetic Commonwealth could understand that, you know, as Margaret Thatcher once famously said, socialism works just great until you run out of other people's money. You know, and the Chinese, there's only so much that at some point they're going to cut off our credit.
Of course they are.
Because they don't want to lend us money. They want us helpless.
They want us to fail and be helpless. It's absolutely.
People do not understand the ruthlessness of other governments and other peoples. People don't understand how many people were killed and or allowed to starve in the 20th century
For the other nations.
so that
Right.
Mao Zedong
Right.
and his communists could rule that country.
This is
And,
true.
and the numbers are staggering. The most people accept the number 60 million killed or starved to create the communist China that we have today.
This is absolutely true.
You know, well, guess what? They can't feed all their people. And they look at us with this vast expanse of space and this vast expanse of farmland.
Resources,
And
timber,
they're
oil,
looking,
gas.
they're looking at us as a breadbasket. The only thing they have to do is either get us to work the farm or get rid of us. So, you know, for the time being, they're quite willing to sell you stuff. And under most of the Christmas trees in the United States, there will be goodies, presents, stuff made in China. And that trade imbalance continues to weaken us. I told a gathering, 10, 15 years ago, I said, you know, with every Happy Meal you buy, that little toy that comes in the Happy Meals has military implications in its manufacture.
That's absolutely correct. Iron Mike, we're gonna hang on here for a second. We're gonna switch gears a little bit, and we'll be back on the Meat and Potatoes Show with Iron Mike from RapidRepublic.com.
RapidRepublicanBlog.com.
There you go. Thank you for straightening me out. Meat and Potatoes Show, conservative talk, awesome rock.